In 3, 2, 1. Cowboys Nation, we are closing in on preseason week number 1 as we welcome you into Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford from Oxnard, California, with Haley Sutton. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Glad you're with us, and there is a lot of excitement going into that first preseason game as football is right around the corner, but we've gotten to see some practices here on the field the last couple of days, both Monday and Tuesday's practices with very different feels. Monday, very much so focused on getting the ground game going. Tuesday, they let the ball fly a little bit. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that you mentioned that it was two different vibes because I think on Tuesday the defense absolutely wrecked shop. So Jacksonville, I hope you're ready because this defense is the real deal. But you can just tell how excited they are. The game week feel is different than it is, going through the motions of installs and all of that. Now it's here, and you can see the energy from the guys on the field.
You can feel it on the sideline, even though there are some ups and downs in terms of some updates along the way. One of them has to do with first-round pick Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. He was given an MRI on Tuesday. He skipped practice after getting a little banged up on Monday, but all indications see that it looks like he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think the best thing about training camp is that allows the coaching staff and the medical staff to be overly precautious because you don't want to run into situations like later in the season where, this is turning into something bigger than what it is. So I'm glad that they were able just to get that little bit of clarification, that little bit of a thumbs up that he's good to go. But also, this is his first training camp as a professional. So maybe it was a little bit harder, a little bit more intense than what he thought it was. It's good to know, though, that all signs are clear for him.
Yeah, especially with as much as they need him on that defensive line. That is a huge plus for Cowboys Nation. Now, his former collegiate teammate, Luke Schoonmaker, second-round tight end out of Michigan, he had a chance to return to practice after, like you talked about, taking the precautions, dealing with a plantar fasciitis foot injury that kept him out of minicamp, kept him out of OTAs, but not out of camp the entire time as he made his return on Monday. Looked really good on Tuesday.
Yeah, I had a front row seat to his diving touchdown there in the 7-on-7 drill, so it was really exciting just to see what we can expect out of Luke Schoonmaker. And I love the approach that the Cowboys medical staff has always had in we're going to ramp up, we're going to monitor that injury and continue until they're exactly certain that he's ready to go. But all good signs from him. He's got the size, he's got the weight, he's got the ability, and so it's good to just kind of see glimpses of what Luke Schoonmaker can bring to the table.
Still trying to figure out where he fits in that tight end room, a very young group of tight ends, which I'm sure we'll get to see quite a bit against Jacksonville on Saturday. One final thing, Tyler Biadasz, a little banged up on that Tuesday practice. He actually exited practice, returned to practice, and then worked his way off. Hopefully he's okay moving forward. Just something else to keep in mind as we head into that first preseason game. But when we come back, Isaiah Stanback joins the show. He'll be in the booth on Saturday calling that game against Jacksonville. We give some keys to look out for and also what position's going to be tested the most against the Jags on Saturday.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. Cowboys! This segment is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, sir. Biggest opportunity of my life, obviously. Like you said, to back up TP and get that number 2 spot. I've been here 4 years, so looking forward to the competition and the battle and the opportunity that comes with it in that spot and being in that number 2 role.
You finally healthy. You get to kind of really show what you can do.
Yes, sir. Like you said, over the off-season training, I've been healthy. I wouldn't say I'm finally. I've been healthy, but like you said, go out there.
Last year you were coming off the injury from the year before,
the broken hip. Yeah, the broken hip my second year. Yeah, but I was good through training camp.
Our sound brought to you by Sleep Numbers. Now we welcome into the show Isaiah Stanback. And Isaiah will be on the call coming up Saturday, 4 p.m. kickoff between Jacksonville and Dallas at AT&T Stadium. And so we're previewing what that Jags matchup will look like, preseason game 1 for the Cowboys. What Cowboys unit do you think is going to get tested the most in that first game?
You know what? Jacksonville has a very respectable defensive line. So I think that this offensive line, you start looking at guys like T.J. Bass and obviously Ball. You got Austin Richards. You got Udoga. You got a lot of guys that are going to be rotating through that offensive line that are going to be challenged by this solid defensive front of Jacksonville.
Yeah, along those same lines, protecting the quarterback is going to be important for this offensive line as well. But when you look at those quarterbacks, we'll likely see Will Grier and Cooper Rush take most of the snaps there. What's the differentiation, or what's the battle look like between them? What are you looking for out of that quarterback position?
I think a continuation of last preseason. I mean, these guys were battling it out all the way to the last week there. Will Grier obviously had the injury last year, so I'm sure he wants a little bit of redemption. Cooper Rush was given the opportunity. He took full advantage of it, and now he got the contract extension. So Will Grier definitely wants to prove, especially with these changes in the rosters with the NFL rules, that he deserves to be here.
Both of those guys look like they are in the right mindset. They look like they're continuing to build toward the regular season and build to make this offense better. So with Mike McCarthy coming in as the play caller, do you think having both of those guys as veterans, at least with McCarthy, would that help the head coach now as he's heading into this new role?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you're concerned about in the preseason is whether somebody at the helm, being the quarterback position, could really weather the storm and really calm the seas. And having two guys that are familiar with the situation, familiar with the preseason, and that have had some actual regular season play, it helps out a lot in terms of trying to keep the train on the tracks in the preseason games.
It really looks like that. I mean, last year you had Cooper Rush, who was, at least at the moment, looking like he was going to be QB3. Mm-hmm. Then he comes in, he does what he does in the regular season as QB2. He's earned that spot. So it looks like that at least the depth chart at quarterback, 1, 2, 3, it looks pretty solidified.
I agree. I wanted to actually ask you, Isaiah, about the other side of the ball, because we don't have a ton of concerns in terms of that defense. So if you're grading out what a successful day for the defense looks like on Saturday, what would you grade it as?
No big plays. I would say no big plays. I mean, I think there's a lot of high expectations for this defense in its entirety. But, the depth, as you start getting to those third string, the fourth string guys, how consistent is the play going to be all the way through the bottom of the depth chart? So you start looking at some of the safety positions. We know we run 3 safety sets. Well, there's 3-4 other guys that are going to be rotating in there. The linebackers, who's really, is Bell going to be able to get in there? You start talking about somebody overshown. He's going to get an opportunity to get some reps in there. So how consistent is this Dan Quinn system all the way through the bottom of the depth chart? That's what I'll be looking for.
I sound like a realtor when saying this, but it's rotations instead of location. Yeah. But Isaiah Stanback's location on Saturday will be in the booth, so be sure to tune in for the entire broadcast. That'll be a whole lot of fun. Haley will be on the sideline. I'll be calling the game. Bill Jones will join us all three in the booth that day as well. We miss you, Bill, here on Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford. But when we come back, we give Haley's keys to the game on who can come out on top between the Cowboys and the Jaguars on Saturday.
This segment was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
Go Cowboys!
One final segment here from Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford from Oxnard, California, as we head into preseason week 1. Cowboys and Jaguars coming up on Saturday with Haley Sutton. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Okay, Haley. Preseason's here. What are your keys to the Cowboys getting a win and getting out of that first week feeling good about this team?
I think the first thing you have to remember when you're going into a preseason game is that it's just that, right? So my number one key to this one is remembering that it's preseason and understanding that these 3 games coming up in the next couple of weeks are a perfect opportunity for Mike McCarthy to really see what this team is all about. We have a really good mix of veterans versus newbies, and so it'll be nice to see a lot of those newbies kind of taking a step up and seeing where they stand. So that's my first key off the top. I think secondly, you have to limit the mistakes, because you can't get better if you're making mistakes, right? They're going to happen, but you got to limit them as much as possible. And then, as simple as it sounds, you got to put points on the board. Mm-hmm. You have to put points on the board. You've got to be able to sustain drives in the red zone. You have to be clinical. The kicking situation, Brandon Aubrey's really going to have an opportunity to solidify himself a spot on this roster. So scoring when it matters most, finding those opportunities, getting some big takeaways on defense, all things that I'm really looking forward to in this game.
I hope for your sake and for everybody's sake that the offense can put points on the board, because that would be a huge confidence builder for for Mike McCarthy as a new play caller and continuing to build into the regular season. For Haley Sutton, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you on Saturday, Cowboys versus Jags.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
Go Cowboys!